Okay. Then we have this guest artist to come over, Bruno
Cabrera.
Cabrera.
Yeah.
Okay.
In my language, Cabrera.
Cabrera. Okay.
Yeah. How are you guys doing today? Good. I'm good. So I'm actually from Brazil, so I grew up around this stuff, and it was a great opportunity for me, and I always love sharing with as many people as I can this kind of the music where I'm from. So this instrument, if you don't know the name, you call this like a Brazilian tambourine. A lot of people understand it as Brazilian tambourine, but the real name is pandeiro. Okay, right? Good that you guys have one in there. So we're gonna start by talking about how do you learn a different style of music, right? I just finished my doctorate and I wrote a dissertation about how to teach foreign students how to play Brazilian music or Latin music, and it's all based on psychology of music and how actually your brain understands that kind of stuff. And it's basically how you learn a new language. So basically what I'm going to start doing here is teaching you a vocabulary, like teaching you the words that are part of this new language that we're going to speak. Is that clear? Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I'm going to do is talk about samba. Samba is one of the greatest styles in Brazil, the one things that people play for carnival, all of that. And it's basically what you're going to see there. In your handout you have two things. You have a listening guide in which you can find recordings of the styles and they're listed in there. 4 different styles that I put there for you. And you have a basic vocabulary for those styles that I put in there. Correct? So you're gonna find that some of the patterns that we're gonna see are the same for a bunch of different styles, but when the style itself is played, it depends on the type of ensemble that's playing, the amount of people in the ensemble, and the type of instruments in the ensemble. That's what basically changes from one style to the other. A lot of those styles share the same patterns. So it's kind of, I'm going to teach you some patterns, you're going to, we can apply that for a bunch of different styles. Does that make sense? So I'll start talking about samba. The first step that you need to learn here is the patterns and how it sounds like, right? And where it comes from. Who here knows any Brazilian instrument? Cool. Which instruments do you know? Okay. Cajon is not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Peruvian.
Yeah.
You're a little too south.
Yeah.
So
No, that's okay. That's good. That's good. It's good that you're. Yes.
I don't remember the name of it, and it's terrible. But it's like a single bow and like a string, and you bow it. And
The berimbau.
Yeah, those are
Good.
so cool.
Yeah, it's I have one of those at home. I should bring this sometime. It's really cool. Okay, but the instruments that I'm going to talk about is the instruments from samba for now, right? And the first instrument is called surdo.
Mm-hmm.
Surdo.
We do upstairs.
Yeah, you have some there, good. So the surdo is the Portuguese word for deaf, like a person that cannot hear. That's the name of the instrument, right? And in the samba school, we have 3 different surdos. The first surdo, the second surdo, and the third surdo. If you go to the samba page, you're going to see that they are listed in there, and there's a basic pattern for each one of those. So the first thing you need to know about samba is reading in 2/4. Okay? And have you learned in theory class all that thing about the hierarchy of the beats? If you have a 4/4 measure, beats 1 and 3 are stronger than 2 and 4, correct? That's how we learn. That actually is not entirely true. That depends on the style you're playing. If you're playing jazz, for example, a thing that's familiar to you, which beats are stronger?
2 and 4.
Great, so that already fell apart, right? So now we're talking about Brazilian music, specifically samba, and we have just 2 beats in the measure. Theory says that beat 1 is stronger than 2, in this case. Not for samba, okay? In samba, beat 2 is stronger. There is some sort of weight, more of an inflection in there, whatever you want to call a stress on that beat. And that's played by the first surdo, right? Mm-hmm. And it plays just a quarter note in that, which is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the second surdo, now we need to flip a little bit. plays the first beat, which is softer, right? So if I put both of them together, 1, 2, 1, 2. So do you hear that I have an emphasis on the second beat here? Good. And actually I'm dampening the instrument like here. I'm gonna connect to what I'm doing here in 1 second. Okay? Now you have a third surdo in there that in samba has more of a soloistic role. The pattern that I wrote in there is just a basic pattern that you can find it, but that instrument actually starts soloing depending on the arrangement of the samba school that you're playing, right? So for you guys playing pandero, which is important is the first and the second surdo, right? So let's start learning how to do that in here. First thing you're gonna learn, if you didn't yet, is how to hold the instrument. Have you guys played tambourine before? It's the exact same thing, right? You hold it the same way. One thing is that this instrument starts to get heavier and heavier as you play, and requires a lot of endurance. So one thing that's important for you is to keep your wrist flat as possible, right? Here. And you, like the tambourine, you're not gonna put your finger through this hole here. It's the same purpose, it's just to put on a stand if you need to support it. But you're gonna try to grab with all the fingers the frame of the drum, so you have more support. You're gonna have to start to find, okay, how much pressure you're gonna put in there to not be tense, but have a very good grip on it. And your thumb can be up here. And then you're gonna avoid as much as possible muffling the head, okay? Second thing you need to know is that you're gonna use our middle finger to dampen the head, right? As you play, okay? Now, let's deal a little bit with your right hand. Is everyone right-handed here?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's learn what to do with the right hand. There is a basic motion here that we need to learn, which is basically twisting your hand like that. Right? And the part that you want to hit the instrument is this part of your hand here, right? The very end of your thumb. And by the rim, what you think is this sort of like a timpani, because you want it to resonate, right? So that's the first basic motion we're going to do. And then exaggerate that. Good. Try to hear more of the sound of the head than the jingles, right? That is, this instrument is different than the classical tambourine, because on the classical tambourine you want the jingles to sound and you want to avoid the sound of the head for most of the time. Here, with this motion, you want the sound of the head. You want to avoid the jingles. Of course, that's not going to be 100% accurate, because the jingles will resonate no matter what. Okay? But you need to try as much as possible to have that bass tone coming out of the instrument. And relax your thumb a little bit. The part of your hand that hits the drum is this part, but your whole thumb hits it. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do each one of you separately. Okay, let's start here. 2 beats each. 1 and go. And good. What I see. One thing that I saw a lot is that some of you are dampening the drum with the thumb here. You need to keep your thumb in there to support, but keep it out a little bit. You see how I'm doing here? The base of my thumb is on the rim, and this is a technique that can be used as well. Instead of using the middle finger down here, but this is usually for different purposes. Okay, cool. So the second type of stroke we're going to do is the exact same thing, but you're muffling down here with your thumb, with your middle finger, right? And now I need all of you to count 1, 2. So close, open, close, open. Let's exaggerate on that little bit. 1, 2, soft, loud, soft, think about a small and a bigger motion. Great. On top of that, keep going. I'm going to start adding the swing of the style. Does that make sense? Cool. Great. Now that we learned that motion, that's you imitating the surdos on the summer school, right? Later on, we're going to start speeding that up. Usually in samba, on the samba competitions in carnival, they play that style at around 144 BPM, right? It's pretty fast. Like. So it gets flowing, and then other side, basically, what I did here is a basic pattern for samba, bossa nova, and choro. There are 3 styles here. It's the same thing, but depends on how you doing the inflections and what is the ensemble that you're playing that's going to characterize those styles more clearly for you. Does that make sense? Cool. So the next step on this instrument is to imitate what we have in the shakers there. I put there a chocalho.
We have some upstairs, I'm pretty sure.
Cool. Okay. So it's basically a shaker that we have in Brazilian music, and you play the same way you play a shaker. The difference is the type of inflection that you have in there, right? So if you look at the pattern there, it's just a bunch of 16 notes, correct?
Yep.
Great. How do you play 16 notes? Right, pretty straightforward. In samba, that's not right. Because like in jazz, the 16 note in there will not be completely straight, right? In jazz, the notation is 8 notes, but you know it's supposed to sound like a triplet, correct?
Yeah.
In Brazilian music, there is 16 notes, but they are a little bit uneven, right? So basically, if I were to write that, the first 16 note would be slightly longer than the other 3. Does that make sense? So I'm exaggerating that a little bit so you can hear, right? But basically what you need to think about, and don't take this as like as an accent, but think about an accent on the first and the last 16 note. Basically, right? So does that make sense? So it's very important for you to get that swing. Does that make sense? So that's what you're gonna have to play in here. And the pattern, the motion that you're gonna use in this instrument for now is basically you're gonna think that when you use your release down here is the odd number 16 notes, and the one that you use up here is the even number. So 1, 8, and 1, 8, and 1, 8. Does that make sense? Okay, so now let's make sure we are doing everybody the same thing. I see what you're doing there with your left hand. Do not use that yet. We're gonna get there. Okay? So first, right hand. So we're gonna think about, you're kind of have your hand scooped up a little bit like that, and you wanna hit. Basically, it will depend on the instrument that you have in your hand, but you will usually want to have your hand on top of 2 jingles. You see how my wrist is on top of this set of jingles, my fingers are on top of the next one right here, right? So you want this technique, you don't want the sound of the head, you want the sound of the jingles. So, and make sure, look what I'm doing here. This is the kind of motion that you want. Relax your fingers a little bit. Good. That's it. Next step on that exercise, we're going to start to try to add those accents that I spoke about. Don't ever take these as literal accents. It's not, right? Like in jazz, you feel 2 and 4 stronger. It's the same sort of feel that you have here. If you see written with accents, it's not really what it's supposed to sound like, right? That's why it's very important for you guys to listen to the sounds to the songs that I put in there, because then you're gonna start getting used to how it's supposed to sound like. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not much of accenting, because an accent will sound different and a lot more aggressive than it's supposed to be. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Cool. So now, just for the sake of practicing and learning this pattern, let's think about everything very soft and 2 notes very strong. 1 E and Da, 1 E and Da, 1 E and Da, 1 E and Da. So we're taking a very small motion and a much bigger one. Good. Let's speed it up a little bit. Technique, listen to me a little bit, and you're gonna try to copy that swing. It's not that I'm accenting and putting a lot of stress on that, but there is a little bit of an emphasis on those 2 notes. And the 16 notes are not exactly straight. Can you hear that? When you feel ready, copy this. Okay, let's try again. Make sure you start here. Here's 1. Right? Let's try it again. 1, 2, 1, and go. And notice how I'm doing this. I'm having a little bit of interaction with my elbow. You see, my elbow is what moves up and down to give that action. Keep your fingers out together. Listen to each one of you separate, okay? Same thing, 1 measure each one of you. 1, 2, 1, and go. And ready? Good.
Again, yeah, in the
Awesome.
back.
Yeah. Now, you're still thinking about starting up here instead of down here. Try that again. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, straighten up your fingers a little bit more. Good. Everyone. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Great. Awesome. Now, we learned 3 different patterns so far, right? The first surdo playing on 2, the first surdo playing on 1, and the chocalho or shaker playing the swing of this style, correct? Now we need to put all of them together, okay? So here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna play, you keep your finger, basically what you need to do with your left hand is think 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Does that make sense? You keep it muffled on the first beat, release on the second beat, right? And then what we need to think about is to mix up those motions that we learned so far, right? So you're gonna have 1, which is the first surdo with that tone, right? That sound. And then immediately you go with your fingers up here, right? 1, E, and E, and 1 E, and 2 E, and 1 E, and 2 E, and 1 E, and try to think this as one motion. Did any of you play congas before?
Just keep muffling it, like even when you're playing, you go to this, like, I know it's
Open.
and then does it stay open?
Stay open for the whole beat.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And then you stay close for the
The
first.
whole beat.
Yeah. So beat 1, 1 E, and 2 E, and does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you played conga before, it's the similar concept of a heel toe technique that you're thinking about, right? So you're gonna think thumb and then toe, heel, toe. Thumb, toe, heel, toe. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Another way to think about how you're gonna play this technique is to think that to relate with the type of notation that people usually use in Brazil for this instrument. Imagine there is a line that divides the instrument in the middle, right? Everything that happens below that line is gonna be written below the line in the notation. The notation, we're not gonna have a full step, we're gonna have one line. That's all. That's all we need to write for this instrument. So imagine one line here, whatever is written below the line is a down motion, can be the thumb, can be this, right? Can be a slap tone, down, slap, which is harder than the traditional one, right? And everything above the line is gonna be either this kind of motion or an actual slap, right? Which is an up motion like that. So we are always, for now, we are thinking down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Does it make sense? So that might help you think about how this technique goes. Okay? Let's try that again. 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E. Let's not speed it up yet. Make sure you keep all your fingers, all the fingers played. Let's not speed it up. Hold it back. Now let's try to speed it up a little bit. Make sure you don't add any other type of motion. Be very relaxed. All the fingers play on top. Good. Now let's do some exercise here that's gonna help you understand the swing and how to play that. I'm gonna play for 2 measures. You guys repeat for 2 measures. Then we're gonna do trades. Okay? Let's try that. 1, 2, 1, 2. Back to me. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Does that make sense? So that's how you're gonna, you just need to play along with as many songs as you can to get used to that and get the swing and get the technique. Of course, technique is something that takes time to develop, right? One thing that's important though is that there are ways to speed up that process, right? I did a lot of research on how to practice and how to develop motor skills. If you want to learn this kind of stuff and improve as quick as possible, you need to spread like a lot of small sessions of practice throughout your day. Don't try to be 6 hours doing that. Long sessions of practice are good for memorizing music. If you're playing marimba, learning a marimba tune, that you already have the technique, then you spend hours and hours memorizing and learning sections and all of that. Now if you're actually learning a motor skill, something that you don't know yet how to do, then you need to spread that in several parts of the day, right? And one thing that's very important, do one session of at least half an hour before you go to bed. Because that helps your short-term memory process the information and transfer to your long-term memory while you're sleeping. So you're sleeping and you're learning.
Cool.
How cool is that, right?
Yeah, that's the best way.
I didn't say that, right? So, it's not that you're going to go to sleep and learn. If you don't practice during the day, there is nothing there for your brain to process. Does that make sense? So make sure you're practicing like consistently throughout the day. That's going to help you learn this technique. And as any type of technique, it takes time, right? A long time to develop that. Okay? Okay, cool. Any questions so far? Okay. I'm going to move on to another pattern that we see in there.